Hi, I'm Mike Seymour, and welcome to this FX PhD special look at the Unreal Engine. In particular, some stuff we did in a research project last summer. I'm Mike Seymour, and I'm joined by Michela. How are you?
I'm great, Mike.
So we had a lot of fun being involved in a really complex research project end of last year. It's part of Siggraph, which involved the Unreal Engine. We had a lot of fun doing that, didn't we?
Oh, it was amazing, Mike. We had all these different organisations come together to put on this amazing showcase of real-time technology, featuring not just real Mike, but digital Mike.
So this project was amazing, and we're not going to be obviously presenting you everything about it. We want to give you a taste of it, but the reason we want to do that is because Michela is joining us to do a course in the Unreal Engine.
Yeah, and the idea of this course is that you can bring your existing film and TV skills and really come up to speed on how you would do filmmaking in Engine with a real-time rendering. And obviously what we're going to show you with the Meet Mike project is very much a complex project, but this course will give you a way into all the components that we used.
Yeah, we basically think here at FX PhD that this move into real-time will be incredibly important. So what we're going to do now is show you in the next sort of 10 to 15 minutes what we did in the Meet Mike project, and of course some of the people that were involved, but only to say that these are the people that were informing us, and I guess this is the cutting edge, the bleeding edge. In fact, the version of Unreal we used for the Meet Mike was a sort of modified custom build, so not even something that you could download. Having said that, we learned a lot of lessons from doing those, and hopefully, Michela, you can sort of take that lessons learned and put it in the new FX PhD course on the Unreal Engine.
Absolutely. It's going to be a really interesting course, and I had an opportunity to go backstage and talk to some of the people who put on Meet Mike, which will give you a taste of what this is all about.
This has been a really interesting project with Mike because I think creating a digital space for interviews to take place is something that's probably on a lot of people's minds. Haven't really seen it done well before. Obviously, this was meant to feature digital Mike, but I actually think the setup, the scene, the two people could be in a room being interviewed like an episode of Charlie Rose interview or something is really interesting. I come from a background of feature animation and episodic television, so to be able to take a game engine and produce something that to a lot of people is indistinguishable from something that's been pre-rendered, that's very exciting. And so it's been neat to see people's faces at Siggraph this year when we not only show Meet Mike, but also show the Fortnite trailer and Human Race. These are all things that people aren't used to really seeing happening in real time.
I think a lot of directors are still unclear about what real-time means and are worried about the lack of control over their storytelling.
Well, obviously with film, I think there's a huge place for digital actors, digital stunt doubles. We've seen a lot of people using a similar setup to this to drive non-human characters. It's interesting with this setup to imagine doing remote interviews, driving an avatar of yourself from a remote location. That wasn't really part of our demo, but it's hard to not think about it because of the interview setting we've created. I think directors in general will embrace the technology as it becomes more user-friendly. To be in CG and being able to use the camera like you would on a live-action set is really freeing. Similarly with lighting, to be able to rotate lights, and see shadows cast across the set or see the way the light, hits the character's face, maybe in a way you didn't expect. That's something that's sort of been lost. That spontaneity has been lost in traditional CG production, and you're sort of starting to see it come back. And I think that is probably, for me, the most exciting aspect of this. Is you start to see people getting into the space and exploring. A scene could be blocked out, and you can walk around and film it like you might on a live-action set. We've shown the advancements we've made in skin and hair shading. We've obviously brought a bunch of spectators into VR along with Mike, and so it's been more than just digital humans.
We wanted it to feel like a live show, and originally we were trying some kind of intelligent directing software that just wasn't giving the right feel, and so it turned into we need someone there doing it, and so we fed basically a MIDI board into the engine with the cameras placed, and I sat there and watched it and cut it like a real show.
The Loom stuff, they had a great SDK. It was very clean, really easy to work with. So getting that integrated was actually a lot of fun. We had a really good time, making that work, and it kind of shows on the videos, right, with all this kinds of stuff. So
you're satisfying quite distinct audiences. You've got the interviewee on stage in their headset, you've got the spectators in the audience, and you've got the crowd. So what Is it the one app that's doing all of those different experiences?
Yeah, it's just one executable that handles all those different setups. I had some background in multiplayer games, you know, at Epic and other places, and so really I kind of approached it like a multiplayer game.
Okay, so I think what we should do is just outline for people how the project worked, because if you know the building blocks, you can understand what's going on. We just heard from the team at Epic. Of course, they were central because they provided the Unreal Engine and, of course, a lot of the skills. But it was actually a collaborative team effort. So this is how it worked. I was wearing headgear, like a head-mounted camera gear, and that was doing markerless facial tracking of my face. In other words, it was solving what my expressions were into expression space. That expression space, that solving, used an AI engine and involved cubic motion. And we're going to hear from Cubic in a second. They're great people. That whole process of solving the tracking, in fact, was one dedicated PC. So we had a PC, high-end PC, just devoted to solving my face and driving effectively what would be the rig. The rig was developed by 3 Lateral in Serbia, another great team that joined us. And so they produced a rig. Now, what was the rig driving? Well, I was lucky enough to go to USC as part of the Wiki Human project and have my face scanned. Actually, I got my eyes scanned in Zurich. That was kind of fun. So my eyes done in Zurich, my face scanned, but that model of my face and the rig underneath it from 3 Lateral is what was being driven by cubic motion. So if you're tracking with me, you've got something on my head, that drives cubic motion. Cubic motion drives the 3 Lateral rig inside a USC ICT version of my head. Okay, so that's me, and well, I guess we should hear from some of the people involved in that, but that's only half of the equation. We'll come back and explain the other half in a sec.
Our job at Cubic is to make the face move. There are all these people that make the asset in the first place and all these clever people that make it look beautiful on the screen. But somebody's got to make that asset move around, and our job is to do that, and we do that by basically analysing the live performance of the real you and translating that motion through a bunch of computer vision and machine learning algorithms to turn that into essentially a bunch of high-level parameters that make the virtual you do as close as possible what the real you is doing. Just like 3 Lateral's digital heads can be represented as a few hundred blend shapes, the real you can actually be represented as a fairly small number of parameters as well. And so the solving problem now becomes one of turning our parameterization of you into the parameterization of digital you, not trying to turn every single pixel of you into a parameterization of you, which is a bigger and a harder problem.
So we've got this amazing head rig, we've got this amazing digital character, but one of the things that really blew me away on this project was seeing, as the show went on, because this is real time, we're not talking about a pre-rendered experience, we're talking about an experience that's being puppeteered not just by people, but by this machine learning algorithm. So when I talked to the Cubic Motion folks backstage, one of the things I was really interested in is how you cope with a show that's evolving day by day.
Yeah, because it really was getting better every time we did this, and I think we did it 18 times during the Siggraph show.
You've got this mission control style setup of banks of monitors and everyone doing their individual things.
Yeah.
It's just been amazing watching the quality of the facial animation improving day by day, interview by interview. And so I understand your role on set's actually kind of critical to that, isn't it?
I think so. I mean, I think as a whole team, we work really well because we all know our stations where we need to be. And every single day it has improved, as you said, because we've noticed that, or maybe today we just need to make sure the eyebrow twitch isn't there, or there's a twitch in the mouth that we can fix, or just certain little things like that obviously over the live shows there are going to be certain glitches, but that's what happens with live. But at least we know then on the next show that we can just take that and just edit it accordingly, and it should be okay. Directors, for example, that do shoots, that be able to see, instead of waiting for a shot to be done, to be able to see 30 seconds afterwards or there and then, like, oh, that shot looks okay, we're going to use that shot, rather than sending everything to be animated, spending weeks or money on shots that don't even get used sometimes.
We're not driving a mesh around, we're not driving clusters around, we're not driving points around, we're driving a rig. And the rig is created specifically from a set of scans and it's structured in such a way that it's based around muscle movements and it's split into facts-like shapes in a kind of modified facts kind of structure. And the reason for that is because that works better for the rig, because you get more plausible movement, you fire off the wrinkle maps that are connected to particular particular specific shapes, not clusters of geometry.
So since Senua, what have been the big advances in your pipeline to bring us to today?
One of the biggest differences, in terms of the challenge, is that Mel was acting, and her performance is very, it's very, it's intense. She's doing intense emotion. She's angry. She's not necessarily angry, but she's in pain. She's kind of, really kind of, acting in a specific kind of way in the scene. Whereas Mike is just talking, and he's talking quickly, and he's going at a real pace and talking very, very fast. And it's quite a different type of solve, actually. If the Senua stuff works pretty well, and it hits the kind of expression she wants to, but actually the subtle talking and responses and handling very fast stuff is much more challenging.
How much time goes into this training process to get the tracking right?
Probably about 6 weeks ago, we took the first footage of Mike, and then since then there was an intensive period of about 3 weeks where we were training up this 3D model. And prior to that, I was working on tools to try and make that process more speedy and more easy to generalise to things like different lighting conditions and also different cameras, in case, for the sake of argument, our camera system packed up in the middle of the show. We want to be able to transfer it onto a new camera rig and still have it work. So I spent a few weeks developing tools to try and make that process easier. And then there's probably 2 or 3 weeks of actually building the final model that we see today.
Okay, so at the outset I said that was half the project, the idea of Mike and the digital version of me. But as you've already seen in the videos, I was talking to somebody in virtual reality. So how did we do them? Well, they had a kind of a mirror rig in a sense, slightly different. Whereas you could see in the videos that I was looking at a monitor because I had a head-mounted camera that was part of the Technoprops HMC. The person that I was talking to, let's say it was you, had a VR rig on. Now, because they had a VR rig on, we couldn't stick a camera out in front to read their face because half their face was covered. How do we solve that?
Look, it was a real, in one sense, it was a real homebrew effort. In another sense, it was a total state-of-the-art effort. So what you had was drilled a couple of holes in an HTC Vive headset to put in little mono eye cameras, and they attached a stereo second camera underneath the headset so that the mouth movements were captured. But the feeds from these cameras went into the same software that was driving the digital mic. So you had this amazing machine learning algorithm that Mike was being trained over months, but the guests, there was only about 10, 15 minutes, or 20 minutes maybe to train this machine learning system to recognise their facial expressions via these little cameras.
The aim was to use technology that was as cheap and lightweight as possible. And I think especially the eyes really add to the experience, and there's probably no other way of doing that. Whereas the mouth, you can imagine you could get quite a plausible animation just from audio.
When I came backstage for the first time, it was great to see the first software engineers I saw were both women sitting at the end here, working hard on your solvers. What do you see as the opportunities for women entering the space at the moment?
It's clearly there's still a problem getting women into the so-called pipeline for particularly sort of hardcore computer science, of which this is certainly, it's not social media, it's not marketing, it really is hardcore software engineering. It's really trying to make it look like it's fun and convince girls at a very early age that there are women doing this, it's fun, it's exciting, there's lots of opportunities. But I think it has to start earlier.
Where do you see real-time productions like this going in the next couple of years? Are we at the point where it's going to explode, do you think?
My personal opinion is that augmented reality has a lot more sort of opportunity than VR. It's still completely unclear what the killer app for VR is. But augmented reality, I can already see that there's lots of ways in which that could make people's lives better, more interesting, more fun.
I think it's interesting that Meet Mike shows sort of two ends of the spectrum right now. So you know we can see the Loom AI avatars and the reasonably rudimentary face animation that we have on them. And then right on the other side of the screen, you can see Meet Mike. So, Mike represents sort of the cutting edge of what's possible in real time. If you're rendering it, you can go even more high fidelity. The Loomies, though, I think are maybe a good snapshot of what we might expect to see on a lower end. Or, there's a lot of humor in the way you can puppeteer even a low-res character. And you know, just with the hands and head motion, there's a lot of personality that comes through. So, you know, I have a lot of hope that we can, you know, get Conan O'Brien or something to create an avatar and come in here and we can do something really funny like that, where it's not just about the tech, but it's also about the entertainment. I think I share a lot of people's excitement about AR and VR. But honestly, you know, having come from animation, feature film, I really like the fact that we can start working more interactively. To me, you know, I've been doing this for quite a while, and I feel the tools have always been sort of in between the artist and the final project. And I think as things get more interactive in real time, that starts to be less the case. And you're starting to see a purer, more spontaneous vision from the artistic, you know, creators.
So as I said, we're not going to be doing the mic project in Michela's course. We're actually doing something else, but something that you can actually get the assets for and work along with. What are they going to be doing in your course?
Well, we're actually going to be building on a previous FX PhD course, which was all about creating your own animated short film. So we're actually going to work with existing assets for a short film that is called Taking Tree. And so the characters are a small boy, a tree that comes to life, and we're really going to focus on how you use the game cinematics tools that are built into Unreal, which is a really nice segue if you've got film and TV experience already, but you've never worked with real-time engines before, because a lot of the processes that people use engines for, not just for the real-time rendering, but as an on-set tool or as a tool for pre-viz or post-viz of an experience, rely on this cinematics capability. And so the idea of being able to work within a timeline in the engine is something I think a lot of people will be already familiar with from video editing experience. So there's going to be a real opportunity to learn how to take your own assets outside of this project and really dive in and start making your own experiences.
Brilliant. Well, I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy it enormously. And thanks so much for being with us to have a look at our mic project.
Look forward to seeing you.